Hello, my name's Lachlan and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about working as a scare actor, which lets you scare children. So what is a scare actor? Well, it can mean a bunch of different things and I am by no means an expert, but basically you're a paid NPC. You have a set of things you do, often including interacting with guests, sometimes scaring them, sometimes not. I could actually not find a great translation of the title I had, which was mingling actor, mingelaktör in Swedish, but I do believe that is a better word for what you do, since that includes acting and interacting with people without scaring them, or without necessarily scaring them. I found the ad for the job that I've done in the Facebook group Sweden Cosplay. So this post was posted by a member who thought that it was fitting for the group, which obviously it was. If you're not lucky enough to find an ad in your local Facebook groups, you can always try looking at places where they have seasonal events such as haunted houses or even Santa's workshop. Entertainment parks are a great place to start, although the competition can get kind of fierce. Imagine the Disney parks, for example. So, once you've found one of these elusive ads, you send in your resume and you hope for an interview. Now, I'm not going to go into full details on what I put on my resume, but I do want to point out a couple key factors that I think really helped me to actually get this job. First off, you want your photo to be somewhere in between a passport photo and an Instagram photo. I chose this one since I've been told by other people that they like the way I look in it. I look happy, I look sort of natural, I don't look like I'm striking a pose. I'm not the biggest fan of this picture. You know, candid pictures aren't the easiest thing to look at of yourself, but try to get other people's opinion. The merits that I chose to highlight were my own projects regarding cosplay, my experience arranging stage productions, and the LARP I was part of producing as a final school project. These experiences paint me as a creative but reliable person who knows how to follow through on a project that they have started. It also shows that I have a relevant experience both in acting, although different kinds, and in creating costumes. So a little while later, I receive an email that I'm called for an interview. Now, I live about 5 hours away from this place with a mixture of buses and trains, so I had to do one of those dreaded online interviews. This was a group interview, and after talking a little bit, the whole group, we were parted into smaller groups where we discussed how we would handle certain situations that could come up in the park, how we would handle it as the people working there and as people who were dressed up and playing a character. After that, we also had a very creative exercise where we had 1 minute and we were going to find something we really liked, and then we were supposed to create a character that had an element of all those items that we had gotten. At the end of the interview, we had one-on-one interviews with the people working there. During my one-on-one interview, I also asked if it was okay if I sent a couple of pages with pictures that highlighted the visuals of my previous experience, and they said okay, so I sent them these. A few weeks after that, I got an email that said, "Congrats, you are hired." And then it was time to create my character. So my first character was for the Realm of the Dead area of the park. The scary levels of these areas were parted up in 1, 2, and 3. Realm of the Dead was on the 2nd level, so spooky but not outright terrifying. We got a few pages of inspiration and then we were free to start creating. Of course, there was a cohesiveness that was needed, but we did get a lot of free rein when it came to our characters and our costumes. I had quite a bit of trouble coming up with my first character just because there were so few restrictions that my mind was running wild and I was just like, I can create this and I can create this. But in the end, I settled for this time wizard, a magician whose aesthetic is inspired by clocks, watch faces, etc., things that have to do with time. My idea was that he had traveled through time into the realm of the dead and wasn't really supposed to be there. The aesthetic was gonna be like dark, mysterious, brooding. This mystery of man that would intrigue people to ask and to interact. From the start, I decided I was going to make one big statement piece. I wanted to do the cape cloak thing because, well, it's awesome, and also Swedish autumn can get really cold. So I make this great patchwork of a cloak. It's long, it's going down to my feet, it has 4 layers, it's amazing, it's wonderful, I'm in love with it. I find this grey blouse that I fix a couple pieces of, I find these velvet pants that I have to sew out a little bit, I find these shoes that I'm really happy with, and I find a cummerbund that I just have to sew a little bit on. As a last minute thing, I also made a mask. I have this mold of my face that I just put pieces of scrap Worbla on and heated them up and like fiddled with them, and then when I took it off and they were stuck together like Worbla does, it fit my face, and then I just tied up some knots and painted it, and that was my costume. So with my character done, my costume done, I make my way to the park. This I do the day before my first day of work. Arriving, I sign contracts, normal working contracts, plus a modeling contract in case there are any official photos taken in the park that I'm in and they want to use that for publicity, which I was more than happy to do, but was a choice that you didn't have to make. I meet a bunch of the other actors and they are all super nice. I feel very awkward at first, since I don't know anyone and most of them have been there for a while when I arrive. But I stay and I keep chatting with them and I strike up some really nice conversations. I wake in the morning feeling a little bit delirious, very nervous, and I was right to feel that way because oh boy, that first day. That was a day. I realized right off the bat that I'm not remotely as prepared for this as I thought I would be with my stage experience and my experience portraying characters in cosplay at conventions. Interacting with the guests and having to react to the way they act to you is a completely different experience, and it really takes some getting used to. There were plenty of children, and I mean so many children that after a while they just sort of meld together and you're not sure if you talk to 20 different kids or the same kid 20 times. Most of them were alright and nice and just, wanted to talk or just waved a little. They also really want to know your name. That's the first question out of their mouth. And I had not come up with a name for my characters, so I had a very hard time navigating that. And some of the kids, though, they really want to one-up you. And they want to make sure that you know that they know that you're an actor and this is fake. They also really want you to know that you're not scaring them. Another thing that I was not prepared for is the amount you get gendered. Normally, in Swedish and English, you don't get your third-person pronouns said to you especially often. People say you or your name unless they are talking about you with someone else, which is a lot of the time when you're a character actor and parents and kids talk to each other about you, like, oh, who's that scary person out in the woods? That girl, that boy, that man, that woman. It's very inconsistent, and for someone who does not pass all the time, it gets really tiring. Thankfully for me, the mixture still made it okay, but it was still something I had to really get used to, and it did drain a lot of energy. So this first day felt like it dragged on forever. There were highlights, of course, but mostly it just felt like insecurity and just trying to scramble on how to fix the things that I did not realize didn't work with my character. The actual main problem that I had was that no one saw my costume the way I saw it, which when you're cosplaying might not be a problem, partly because you do have the reference and people who cosplay from the same series or have seen it also know just from the costume and the wig and the way you act which character you are. Here, no one had that reference. That was just a reference I had in my head. And I was mistaken for a bird person, most of all, also for a witch, which I did not like. And this was all kind of jarring because when I looked at myself, I saw a wizard, but no one else did. So I did decide at the end of the day that I was going to tweak my character. Not the costume, except a bit of the makeup, but tweak the way I presented and actually lean into this bird person narrative. For the second day, I tweaked my makeup and I tweaked the way I held my body and the way I walked. And for the most part, that turned out pretty great. I felt more in tune with my surroundings and I felt like it could act better altogether. Now that I did feel a bit more secure, I tried scaring both from afar and more close up. And with the variation, it really made the time go a lot quicker. And as the time went, I felt more and more comfortable with trying out new things. You know, the feeling when you really want to go for something, but there's a piece of you holding you back, making it a little bit awkward instead. I managed to push past that, which made the experience both for me and for the people at the park a lot better. There were some really great kids that were really sweet and really wanted to interact with me, but were a little bit too scared in the beginning, but then came up to me and we had conversations, and I had these little erasers that I had bought beforehand of cute animals and things like that that I gave out to the kids that I liked the most. Some of the kids also wanted to fight me, which was a strange experience. And in the beginning I did let a few too many of them actually do that. I didn't fight the kids, but there was like a little girl who had this wand. She must have been like 3 or something, and she thought it was hilarious to hit me with it. And I acted with it and like fell down on the ground and was like, meh. But of course she kept on doing that. But thankfully I can outrun a 3-year-old, so that problem kind of came with its own solution. So after the first weekend, this had been a Saturday and a Sunday, my first 2 shifts were done, and that felt so great. Immediately when I came back to the area we were all in, the producers had gotten candy, they'd gotten soda, they'd put on music, and everyone just like relaxed and let the energy flow out, and like, this was great, but we're really glad to actually get to go home now. I hung out with some of the other actors and we talked and we had a really great time. So over the following shifts, I had some really great moments and also some not so great ones. I tried to make games with the kids who dared to come up to me, because once they came up to me, they wanted to have a conversation and I did not know what to say. I had hidden these keys in this little patch of forest that I mostly roamed around in, and sort of asked the kids to find the keys for me, and in return they get these little erasers. The problem was that the kids were terrible at finding the keys. Like, I had to walk just right past the key. If the key was like hanging here, I had to like look here, like really pretending I didn't see it. So the kid could be like, oh look, here's the key. And then I'll be like, yes, great. So I don't know if that was because I knew where the keys were, or kids just are really bad at seeing things. A lot of kids also wanted high fives, which I used to my advantage the last couple of shifts, and I got this fake hand onto this piece of string, and I attached this fake foot to the other side of it. And then I hung them around my neck, and then I sort of waved at the kids with this and just like dropped it. From afar, or when you're not looking too closely, you can't really see that this is a fake hand. So people would wave, and then I'd just drop it and make it look like it's all broken, and then it falls down and I wave with my real hand. And it was really funny to see the reactions on people's faces, because they'd be like, hey, and just like walk away. I also managed to get in some really good scares. One thing that I noticed quickly was really useful was walking into these groups and like inserting myself in the situation. A couple of shifts in, I adapted this stare and like smile and would just like... I felt very inspired by the Groke from the Moomins, because that's one of the faces that's like etched into my mind as a horror when I was a kid. I loved her, but I was also immensely scared of her. There was this person that I was standing behind. It was on one of my favorite spots to scare people. There was a map and then groups of people would stand and look at the map and orient themselves, and I would pick one of the people and stand behind that person and wait for them to notice me. This person was with just one other person who noticed me, and I was standing behind her. She was slightly shorter than me, and she just turns around and just turns like a full circle and walks away. She has her face turned to me at one point and just turns the other way and walks away, not acknowledging at all that I was there. And that, for some reason, sort of gave me the chills. Unfortunately, but not surprisingly, there were also some bad experiences. The worst thing that happened to me in the realm of the dead was this grown man who, while I was talking to a child, interacting with them, and this guy comes up behind me while I'm distracted, pushes his fingers into my sides. So I'm very proud to say that I did go out of character and tell this guy off, which is exactly what you should do if you feel unsafe. Perhaps not the telling off someone, that depends on the situation, but going out of character and not engaging with them. It really sucks when you have to go out of character like that, because it kind of brings you out of it as well. But at least with the kids, it can be a really good deterrent to keep them from doing similar stupid things with other actors. So, would I recommend doing this? Absolutely. I've always loved dressing up, like even since before I knew cosplay was a thing. I remember being really sad as a kid when I felt like I had outgrown being able to dress up, and like the people in my age range weren't doing that anymore. It wasn't the cool thing to do. So I was really sad for a couple of years when I couldn't dress up or like express myself in that way, and then I found cosplay and everything was right in the world again. I'm also a huge horror fan, which I don't really get to express through cosplay. So this job was really just bringing together two of my absolutely favorite things. Despite a couple of bad incidents, this was a fantastic experience, and I feel like I've grown a lot as both an actor and as a person coming out of it. It almost feels like you're going to a convention with the putting on costumes and makeup and then acting as a character and then getting it all off and everyone's super tired but you don't want to go to sleep yet. It's a very familiar feeling, and I very much enjoy that part as well. If you are interested in doing this though, make sure you are both physically and emotionally ready, because for me it did take a toll, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. It is hard work. You're out walking for several hours a day, and though that might not seem a lot, you have to stay in character and keep on being on your toes and alert all the while that you are getting tired. And personally, the misgendering did take a lot of mental energy as well. So keep that in mind if that's something you know that you have an issue with, or that you feel could be a problem with interacting with people. Now, if you're not that into mingling with people and you're more the sort that likes to make them bleep their pants in fear, keep your eye out for part 2 of this video. There, I'll tell you all about my second character for this job, a scare level 4 out of 3. I'll see you again at Horror Night.